When we think about dolls as a child, we think of Band-Aids and how Band-Aids are colored. Photography, a lot of that stuff is based off of what has been perceived as the standard of what normal skin is. And in the same manner, that standard also exists in healthcare. I met my wife, Dr. Latoya Danita Smith, at a Christmas party at church. She was a doctor of podiatric medicine. And then it was upon her graduation from her residency while she was doing her hair, and she noticed that there was a raised mole at the base of one of her locks on her scalp. And she was like, well, this could be melanoma. We got it biopsied and it came back positive. I really didn't know anything about melanoma, skin cancer, cancer. Never did I suspect that it would come to live in my house. It was very aggressive. She passed away on December 9th, 2011.
Although Black Americans have a lower risk of melanoma than their white counterparts, studies have shown that they are often diagnosed at a later stage and have poorer survival rates as a result. This is in part because clinicians have a lack of experience diagnosing skin conditions in people with darker skin. And the problem goes beyond melanoma. Research shows that dermatologists are better at identifying all types of skin conditions on lighter skin compared to darker skin.
It was throughout that time that I learned a lot about caregiving. I learned a lot about death, life, love, and I learned a lot about cancer. I didn't realize the lack of research or options that were available to people who were going through such an aggressive form of skin cancer, melanoma, and I did not realize that it was compounded if you were Black.
Throughout medicine, there are a number of healthcare disparities. So when we look at collectively the non-white racial ethnic populations in the US, we see a number of important disparities in care, including in dermatology. So what contributes to the observed racial ethnic disparities? It's really a complex answer. It's multifactorial. One of the myriad factors include gaps in medical education that includes detailed descriptions of dermatologic disorders across the spectrum of diverse skin types and populations. There's also limited research for many of the conditions that disproportionately affect patient populations of color. Then downstream contributes to fewer treatment options for some of the conditions that we treat. A great example of this would be a scarring alopecia called CCCA. Not a day goes by without me seeing this multiple times a day, and it's permanent, disproportionately affects women of African descent. This is something that is practically a silent epidemic, and yet we don't have any specific approved therapies for this, and research historically into this disorder has been very limited. Thankfully, this is something that is changing, and there are actually active studies going on now after many decades.
Another factor is the lack of representation in publicly accessible images. According to a 2018 study, under 5% of images in general medicine texts included darker skin tones.
It's a common occurrence in my practice that if I give a patient a diagnosis of even a common disorder such as rosacea or psoriasis, if the patient then turns to the internet to look for more information, they tend to find an absence of patients that look like them. And this in turn can sometimes lead to even questioning of the diagnosis.
It's a big blind spot, and that's why it's so important to have this information out there so that people can have tools in order to help identify the issue for them at the earliest points, preferably by stage 1.
A resource like this is exactly what Smith set out to create. Using his skills as a software engineer, he created an app dedicated to building a health network for people with darker skin.
Melalogic is a platform that gives Black people a single source of skin health information from trusted professionals who look like them. You'll be able to submit a photo of any skin condition you may have and receive instantaneous feedback as to what it can be and suggestions on how you should treat it, and be an advocate for your own health. We want to be able to provide people with the options that they're looking for in order to help them meet their needs and just overcome these hurdles.
These books did not exist when I was in training. And we turn to our textbooks and see little to no examples of common conditions in darker skin. It's really remarkable to see the progress that we've made over the past 2 decades, but particularly the increased engagement and commitment to advancing the field that we've been seeing in the past 2 years. And a lot of the efforts are now coming to fruition. So with this momentum that we're seeing now, what I hope to see 3 to 5 years from now is an increase in the number of research into many of these conditions that disproportionately affect patients with skin of color, but have historically not had much research and have very limited treatment options.
Latoya's not here, right? And I'm alive and I'm pretty healthy. But there are other people that are dealing with issues right now, every day. And I want to help them. I want them to know that they're not alone. I want to provide them with comfort. I want people to know that Black skin is worthy.